Guys, welcome once again to Everything and Anything and Everything. I keep saying it wrongly.
Anything and everything.
Anything and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good times. Once again, I'm Nell. She's Promise. And we've got the legendary table of contents.
Nicely done.
Tom Oketch Clement, TOC. The table of contents. Did you get it? Never mind. She doesn't get it. Forget about it.
I actually shuffled it, so now it's Clement, Tom Oketch.
Why?
The CTO.
That is nicer than TOC.
Of course. I gave it some thought.
Nicely done. But here we just talk about anything and everything in between. This is going to feel like a lot of repetition because we've been reminiscing quite a bit. And I feel like it's nice to remember things. So Tom, for the guys who may not know Tom, is the original resident of C19. I was telling you, I still have that old album we did. HOP. Let me get your CD. So I don't forget. Give you. Take as many as you want. But is there a way to put this here so that it can look like an ad?
This is exciting.
This is an old album. We had a band called HOP Band back in the day. We started the band in 2005. Yeah.
Wow.
2005.
Wow.
I was in my first year. Tom was soon to join us. But this album, we did it when 2009, 7, 8, 9 in that. We released it in 2009.
Yep.
It's still available on Spotify and Apple Music and all those places. House of Prayer, that's what you look for. It's called To Our King, HOP Band. Yeah? Why was I bringing that up? So, if you look on the credits at the back here, it says copyright. No. I'm looking for it. Recorded at. There it is. It says recorded at Bedroom Records. Recorded at Bedroom Records. That's because it was all produced in a bedroom.
Wow.
Yeah, like Bedroom Records was like the going thing. But C19 was Tom's room on campus, Mitchell Hall. That's where it came from. And we've stuck with it ever since. It was the original room of dreams. I don't know what your password is.
Wow.
Oopsie. There we go.
Okay. Good, right. This thing has finished copying. But
Nice.
Tom was the original guy at C19. I remember that being a place when Tom joined campus, be a room where you'd go and learn new things. I learned about Ableton from Tom. Do you remember? What version was it?
I don't even remember.
7. Who taught you about Ableton?
I don't know. No one. Like, it was online. You go download the
You just
the
found
app
it.
and then you figure out. Because remember, we started using, what was the other program? We started using Cakewalk. Well, at least I started using Cakewalk.
No, I didn't use Cakewalk. It was you.
Then moved to FL Studio.
I used FL Studio first.
Yeah, then from FL we went to, I think, Cubase. And around that same time we discovered Ableton.
So you're the one who was exploring all the DAWs. A DAW is a digital audio workstation. A DAW is a software used for recording music. I'm helping Promise because she was like, man, this is becoming too scientific too quickly. What am I doing on this podcast? I have nothing to contribute here. Nothing to contribute.
Not true.
Yeah. Anyway, you're the first guy that ever showed me live. I don't remember caring about it. I don't remember why. Anyway, I feel like I've jumped between spaces. But in remembering, 2005, I started this band. called HOP Band. Before starting this band, you have to go back to when I met Tom. It was O level. I'm in S4. I've gone to the chapel during not class time hours to play with the piano. Tom was those guys in the choir who used to make beats, and every Sunday he trusted the beats were going to make the service more bearable. It wasn't called a service, it's a Catholic service, so it's mass.
Mass, yeah.
It's going to make the mass more bearable. And these guys, they used to cook really sick beats on that school keyboard, PSR something, back in 2000 something. Yeah, the early 2000s. So this one day I'm in the chapel, I'm playing the piano. No, I'm not playing the piano, I'm playing with the piano. 'Cause I was trying to learn how to make certain things happen. And then Tom walks in and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And then he first shows off, does some nice things. I'm there like, oh man, that's so cool. That's so cool. Then he's like, let's go upstairs, I show you the real one. So he brings out the nice keyboard and he's making beats. What? When did you start doing that type of thing?
Making beats?
Well, all of it. The keyboard, making beats.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy because
You were born this way.
I wish I was born this way. But I remember, like, when I tell this story, I tell people that I had I guess even way back, my first music instrument was a harmonica.
A harmonica?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that.
Well, now you know.
I'm learning that for the first time today.
Yeah, it was.
Tom plays the harmonica.
Well, I do not play the harmonica, but it's there's an uncle of mine who gifted me one when I was really young, and I credit him with inspiring a passion for music just because of that. But then later on, my mom bought us, not me, but me and all my siblings, a toy keyboard, and it was a shared toy. But I think with time, everyone else lost interest, and it became mine.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. I could just keep playing with this. So I think that's kind of when, excuse me, that's kind of when I got interested in like piano and keyboard. I didn't really grow much until I then went to SMAC when I met this guy who was in S4 at the time, and he was looking for someone else. He used to play the organ, is what we called it, at school. And he was looking for someone because he wanted to focus on his studies. And he was like, I need someone else who can play.
Yeah.
And there was no one.
Yeah.
And I think around that time, I kind of wandered into the chapel and I was like playing around with the keys. And he was like, oh, you kind of know something.
You kind of know something.
Yeah. So it was like, you're going to be the next organist.
I like it.
And the training consisted of me basically watching him play every Sunday. It was like just stand next to him, then see what he's doing, learn what he's doing, and basically learn from that. And then during the week, I had access to the chapel, so it was a lot of just like learning on the job.
I really like the sound of that story, because now you look back and you're like, wait, that's the same thing we're trying to do now, but someone was really did that for you. Do you know how to find this guy? Do you know how to stay in touch with him? Do you know where he is? I think I've asked this question before.
I don't know where he is right now. I might still have his number, but I don't even know if it still works. It's been many years.
I mean, you can't help but wonder, like, if a guy like that saw where that idea went over time. In a lot of ways, what that guy did was kind of setting up this type of thing. So I met Tom in that same chapel, in that way that I've described, and then not much interaction happened after that in SMAC. SMAC was that type of school where you don't connect with phone belows.
There were barriers to anything meaningful.
There were barriers. That was the culture. Anyway, fast forward. I think I was about to go to my second year, and Tom is now in S6 VAC. And in a very similar fashion, we find each other at a keyboard at church. And he's asking a similar question. Hey, what are you doing? Anyway, it was so weird. But I remember like just saying to him, man, I have this band, you know, it's called HOP. You should come and you should join. You'd think it was a serious thing. It was a serious thing, just in its early days. Serious. Yeah, and I think from like that moment forward, we spent tons of time together. I don't think there is a significant life choice that has happened in my life since then that you haven't been involved in.
Wow.
Yeah, because even on my wedding, you were there on the crew.
Is this true?
Yeah.
I remember that.
That was a lot of shared life. And now here we are at C19, several years later. And I'll show you this video now that it's ready. And you need your password again. Okay. Plus button there. What software instrument? Then, what else? Light. Like you can get like a thing. Those ones range from like 20 bob to. Whoever's on this thing had an agenda.
This was before Nelson and Sharon.
Here we go. Whoever's on this thing had an agenda, because this is Tom. Do you see? That's Tom.
Wow.
It's never changed. Looks exactly the same. I'm the only one who changed in this video.
Yeah.
Do you remember this place?
I remember.
What's going to happen in this room and the other room?
That's
This is Martin
my
asking.
brother Martin. I'm just
Going to place these classes.
working with things like
all of
that.
them. In isolation, so absorptive form, and cover it with wood. Alright?
It's hard not to cringe. Wait. This box was new.
This is when you just come back from
Yeah.
Australia.
And you guys had built that room. I wasn't part of it. Just so everybody knows, it was all Tom. I came and they said, okay, this is the place. Now what do you want to do?
Myself, Martin, Thomas Ali Nightway,
Yeah.
David Ogutu, who was staying there for a bit. Sharon keeping us honest.
Keeping us honest.
Yeah,
Powerful
it's
stuff.
a bunch of us.
I want to hear like your perspective when you see everything that has emerged from those early pioneering days. What thoughts go through your mind? What does it mean to you?
I mean, to be like completely honest, I never ever imagined anything like this. Like, I think the idea that I had at the time was, we're gonna have a studio but it was very basic. It was more like, we want to have a place where we create these amazing pieces of art, you could say. But, when I think about then and now, and I think about, all the stories that are told, if lives impacted, people, finding purpose and all of that, I never could have imagined that would be the result. So every time I get back and Nelson, you're sharing all these stories of like all these young people, and you have names and you have like actual stories, like that is like deeply moving every single time. I wouldn't lie to you that I saw all of these things, but I think that's what God does.
Yeah.
Like he shows you. I think he plants seeds, and he asks you to like water. He asks you to weed the seed, but then he's actually the one who gives the growth.
Yeah.
I think that's the scripture that I forget where it is, but you can never know exactly what the end is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not even the end. This is just like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle of the journey. Because now, like when I think of all these stories, like the pioneering moments, they're really Essex VAC moments. So by no means does that put us in our current state at an exit point. It's still pioneering, but in a new way. You know what I mean? But looking back at what we had in those days and what we did and how much has come out of it, I'm now looking at like you promise, because in the story of your life, in terms of time, you're now in that Essex VAC moment. And like now you're hearing me share these stories with Tom. Like, what does that mean for you? Looking at yourself now, what does it mean? How much value do you hear in this moment?
I think it's encouraging at a point, like seeing where this has come from and where it is right now. Like it's really, like even for the dreams I have, like I'm inspired, and it gets me to understand that it doesn't matter like where I am right now, like how small it may look like. Like if I just keep on pressing on,
You stick with it.
Yeah, it's possible for it to become something big.
To become something.
Yeah.
Something that meets someone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think for me that's the unexpected result of the things we did. Because even in those early C19 days, I'm really just thinking, okay, now we're going to record like some good songs, some good music.
Yep.
And somewhere along the way, God interferes with that, and it's like, now, first bring other people in, and we see, okay, now, and to go to this point where there's just lots more people coming through. As with Thomas, we were together. We had a Christmas thing, not last year, but the year before.
Yep.
And he was telling me, because, we're not in each other's space as much. Those are some of like the weird things about growing up, where there are people who you were with every day, and now you're with them once a year. Like what? Now, okay, Tom, you traveled and you're out of the country most of the time, but then the other guys who are here, and like Thomas's home is not far from here, but we'll bump into each other at the supermarket. Hey, man! Then we'll start talking. Then my kids get agitated because I'm taking too long, and they're like, "You're not moving," and I'm like, "Man, wait." I've become those parents.
There's a lot of history here.
There's a lot of history here, and we need to talk through things we haven't connected in a long time. I remember meeting Abby. Abby sang all the songs on this project one time at her home, and I was telling her, "Man, do you ever think about lost time? Like, considering how much we no longer see each other, yet we were always literally in each other's space. Like, you'd get up knowing that, in about an hour I'm going to meet these guys. Then if you have class, you go to class and you're like, we'll link up for lunch. Where are we having lunch from? Or we'll link up in the evening." But it was a constant, we're going to connect. To none of that happens. And then like 4 years pass. You're like, "Man, I haven't seen you in a long time." So it's like, do you ever think about lost time? And we're thinking about it, and we're like, I guess we have to just be thankful that we made the most of the time we had when that was our nature of life. Now it is what it is.
Yeah.
But in those moments we still get to build something, which most probably someone else will eat from, isn't it? Anywho, Tom, you've been on a different path for quite some time. I don't know how much you are willing to talk about it, and like just what some of the lessons you've learned being moved in the way you've been moving the last couple of years.
It's funny because I feel like I'm still figuring it out. So I think it was end of 2015 when I moved to the US to start working there. I was working for a US company here. They transferred me. That's the short story, to where I am right now. And I think there's obviously a lot of things to learn. Moving to a new place where you don't really know anyone. You're trying to figure out. There's like the work part of it, but there's also just like the culture, like what is normal here, like what makes sense, right? And then I think for me, one of the big things actually I've been reflecting on recently is even my faith as well was stirred a lot when I moved, because I feel like, so I now live in the Bay Area in San Francisco. So the faith is not necessarily a big thing in that part of the world,
unless the Warriors have a game.
Well, yeah, but that's faith in something else, right? Yes. So I think for me, one of the biggest like realizations was trying to figure out like what does faith mean to me in a place where it almost seems like the norm is not to believe, the norm is not to be Christian. And I also had to like even question myself, like what are the foundations that I have that are going to keep me grounded, right? So I think that's been like one of the biggest learning things for me in this transition, and knowing that actually having to admit that my perspective of faith was actually insufficient, because I think when I was here, I could get by with meeting up with like my regular Christian friends and staying in my circle that's kind of protected, but not even like diving deeper into like what is God saying about my life, what is He saying about my purpose and things like that. Moving to this place, I've had to ask myself those questions, and then actually ask God, take those questions to God and say, God, what are you saying in this season? So it means I've had to learn to read my Bible a lot more often. It means that I've had to learn to pray and use those times to actually talk to God. I've had to learn to, say no to people in many ways that I necessarily didn't have to, right, when I was here. So I think for me that's been like the biggest like change, and it's something that I'm still going through.
I think it's a very good opportunity. Like I would love to
come close to the mic.
I would love to experience something like that.
What? Really? The country or the absence or the what? Or the the worldliness?
No, like the worldliness in and it affecting me, like the way his response.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like for it to establish what you believe.
Yes. Like for me to actually know that I actually need to read my Bible, like it not being like an everyday thing, like everyone does that, but actually getting to know how important it is in order to remain grounded.
Yeah. So you have like your own decisions about it.
Yes.
Yeah. I think, the testing ground will always be there. We've talked about that before. But also when I hear your story, Tom, I'm thinking about like the foundation that you walked into that space with, that and not everybody has the same foundation, not everybody has the same opportunity to the same foundation, and not everybody has the same response to the same foundation for a variety of reasons. Some people will have the same foundation and they will respond with like, well, the previous gatekeepers are no longer around, I can do whatever I want. Other people would have had a similar foundation but not really bought into it. I think what I hear from you is there was a lot of buy-in that you had to your foundation.
I think I would say that I don't think I went in with a lot of buy-in, to be honest. I think I had to make the decision consciously when I got there. after realizing, what you're saying, not many gatekeepers and all that. He was like, this is it. Like, what do you want to do, right? And I wouldn't even necessarily say that I consciously did that. I think for me, what I would say is that, God is really kind.
Yeah.
And I've seen his kindness throughout my, like, even this transition, where I feel like yes, there were like lots of testing things that were happening, but just like his word says, he gives us the ability to withstand even in the midst of all kinds of trials and tribulation. So I think when I look back, that's what happened. But I did have to make a decision at some point to say, I am going to be a Christian even in this foreign land, almost like in a land of exile, and I'm going to stay true to what I know. So that, I think that moment was definitely there. And I feel like it's also been that way ever since, because like I have to keep making that decision.
There's a video I saw of you. I think it was on LinkedIn or somewhere. And you were doing some presentation. And in that video you had to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Tom. My pronouns are he, him. And I thought, that's so weird. And because I know, I'm like, it's so weird that you've said that. But I'm also like, wait, but that's the environment that you're in now. Like, if you don't do that, someone's going to be offended by it. How do you find that, like, coping that transition? I think I'd be initially, my natural response would be to be rebellious and be like, look, if you don't.
I mean, there's a lot of things for sure where I think my guiding principle is the scripture that says, do not be conformed to the world, right? We're in the world, but we're not of the world. And there's a lot of things that you can kind of decide to do, which are like, I guess I would say worldly. But at the same time, I think there are other things where I think it was also Paul that says that I am all things to all men, right? So that essentially they can believe. And so I think for me, I've had to find like what are the things that are what are the non-negotiable things in my faith. And those are things that I'm never going to give ground on. But then there are other things where it's like, it's kind of like cultural, because even when you read the Bible, there's like laws that talk about things that were like Jewish customs and not necessarily part of, I would say, they're not like grounded in what the Christian faith would necessarily be about. So I've had to, make those decisions and say like, what is it that I'm going to die on this hill, right? Versus like, oh, this is like probably a cultural thing. But yeah, I think that's really the main principle that I've kind of looked at.
Powerful stuff.
I want to know how being part of the collective at the beginning, how it was for Tom. Like, what was the experience?
Wow. I'm gonna let Tom answer this question.
Wow. I think one word I would use is chaotic.
That's a good answer.
But also exciting, right? Because you don't. I think when I look back at like the things that we were doing, we didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. But it was just like you have this sort of raw energy where you're like, I want to do something new. And there was an opportunity to do that. We had the freedom to come and create, like in this world of ours where you could literally do anything. And I don't know whether it was just that we were young or like we didn't really worry too much about like repercussions or anything like that. When someone said don't do this, we found ways to do it. To do it, right? And for the most part, it was just exciting. So I think for me that like gave me life. And even the things that we're talking about, like I don't know, DAWs, music, all that. I think one of the things I was defining was like, how do you do this in a new way, right?
Yeah.
So that, I think that's really life giving because.
And you're the one who had that thing. I was the conservative one. Tom came with a laptop which couldn't close. Yeah, a laptop you had.
Yeah, I remember. It was an HP. It was broken.
It was broken. No one had ever done anything like this before. It's like, yeah, this is what we'll use for our keyboard. And I'm like, what if it fails? It's like, nah, it will be fine. Yeah. We go on the stage. They're like, look, here's a real keyboard, a big, nice, expensive keyboard, CP something, Yamaha. Tom is like, yeah, we're going to use my laptop. And they're like, man, what if? But then he had put their tracks and was going to run tracks. No one had done this stuff, at least in our part of the world, that I'm aware of. It's all experimental. And the whole time I'm there waiting for nothing to happen because I don't want something to happen. But Tom, like you look at Tom and he's like, unbothered. This is good. This is fine. Yeah. This is fine. Man, Tom you've always been that guy. The guy who sees possibility. I think now, like, you gave that to me over time. And I started to own it. So someone will meet me now and I'll have a bit of that expectation that it's going to be fine, but I really got it from Tom as a lot more conservative than that.
You're giving me more credit than I deserve.
It is the truth. It is the truth. He's the one who brought Ableton. Now Ableton is what we use when we're not in Pro Tools. But like all our production happens in Ableton. That's Tom. This is the software of the future. And I was looking at him like, yeah, are you sure? But here we are, really committed to what Tom saw. You saw it coming. There are many things he did like that. I'm thinking about, like, I remember when Abi's dad was traveling, and you'd saved up money. You bought a MIDI keyboard, first MIDI keyboard we ever had. You're like, yeah, this is what we're going to be running with. Like, in my mind, I'm like, we need to save more money so we can buy a real keyboard. To this day, we still don't use real keyboards. We're still in that MIDI plan.
The story of that actually is that I looked up keyboards because I think at that time there was a Triton at All Saints, right?
Yeah.
Called Triton. And I looked up the price of the keyboard and it was like $3,000 or something. Like, who has this money, right? But then there are MIDI keyboards which are like, I don't know, $200 or something.
Yeah.
And then you have software. And you could actually get, like, because we're looking for great sounds, right?
Yeah.
At the time. I won't comment on the software because usually it has a price tag, but yeah, we didn't necessarily have to buy the software.
We just stole it.
So
nowadays we buy it. In those days,
yeah,
we just
do not steal software.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I think it was also just like that's what we had at the time. Right?
Yeah.
So we were making
do with what we had. Budget.
And trying to make it sound good.
Yeah. And that just seeped through things. I don't remember whose idea it was. Maybe it was Gideon's idea. Reverend Gideon. Now he's Reverend Gideon. In those days, he was Dr. Love. Oh, man. I hope that doesn't put him in problems. But we were young, I don't remember whose idea it was, but we went for outreaches. And our sound system was a radio, a home radio. We would connect Tom's laptop to the radio so you can hear the keyboard.
Yeah.
And then the rest you project. I think we went to an outreach in Vienna, and there we used David Ogutu's home theater, like the long speakers, and we connected microphones and stuff to them. God knows how that worked out, but pioneering days. Chaotic is an excellent description. I feel like for you guys who are here now, if this can be chaotic, like it has developed, but if you can see it as chaotic, as something that you can grow and improve, then 7 years, 10 years down the road, there'll be a new kid in S6 VAC, probably my daughter. Jesus. and she'll be the one laughing. You guys did what?
Yeah.
That's crazy. While they're in a more organized, advanced stage of things. But man, just life is amazing. But I'm really, really fascinated that you starting like your musical journey. Someone said, "Come and see what I'm doing, and just imitate me," because I feel like that is at a very, very simplified level. That's what discipleship is. It's come and see what I'm doing, and just imitate me.
Yeah, and I'd even say like about discipleship, you're absolutely right. Like it's like come and see what I'm doing, right? But it's also ultimately it's an imitation of Christ,
Yeah.
right? So come and follow me as I follow Jesus, so
Yeah.
that you can be like Jesus.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I've also had to learn like recently, that discipleship is not even so much about making people, look like me or think like me, but ultimately we're directing people towards Jesus and making them be more like Jesus.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Well, let's end right there. One day we shall figure out the most appropriate way of ending these episodes.
Yeah.
Subscribe, YouTube, whatever,
Comment.
and all the things that come along with it. But thanks, Tom, for making time
yeah, sure thing.
in your very busy international life.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right then.